Hey everybody, thank you for visiting our YouTube channel. My name is Laurie Gombos from Outback Motortek, and I will be showing you how to install our KTM 1090, 1190, 1290 Adventure upper crash bars. So let's take a look at the components and hardware we supply. First off, our upper crash bars are pretty unique in a sense that we supply a supportive cross brace, and this is very unique in the industry, and this is actually a very vital part. Our upper crash bars, thanks to this piece, they don't float. That means they are secured up top, not only down low, so should there be an impact, they would withstand, and this part would absorb quite a lot of impact. Okay, so we're going to be starting the installation with this piece, and then we're going to move on to the right side and left side crash bars. We're going to be using 6mm hex slash Torx bolts with nylock nuts. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of these. We're also going to be using M8 Allen bolts, washer, and nylock nut. Clamps, we have 4 of these clamps, C clamps we call, to secure the lower end of the upper crash bars onto the OEM KTM crash bar, lower crash bars. Tools, you will need 10mm wrench or spanner. I would recommend a small L-shaped 4mm Allen key. Also a 4mm socket, 5mm socket, 13mm wrench or spanner, ratchet, 8mm socket, hex socket, and medium strength thread locking fluid. So in order to mount our cross brace, you're gonna have to remove the steering damper. Okay, so you will find 2 hex bolts here. You need a 10mm wrench, and you will be able to reach in by turning the front wheel right and left, and you can start removing this bolt here. Okay. Okay, the first bolt's out. I'm going to turn the front wheel the other direction to have access to the second bolt back here. I'm going to keep my hand on it. I'm going to push up on it so it doesn't put too much pressure by weighing down this bolt, and I can just use my finger to remove this last piece, the last bolt. It's not going to drop because it's still secured up here, but it's going to hang. Okay, so we're going to put the OEM bolts back in with the steering damper and the cross brace, but first the cross brace goes in, and then on top from the bottom the steering damper, but I will be using thread locking fluid. It's a little too much, so I'm going to spread it like so. And I have a helping hand here, which is always highly recommended. and you will appreciate a helping hand if you can get one. He's going to drop it in very gently, like so, and it's going to go in between the frame and the steering damper. It's really tight space, so you got to be patient. It's going to go up like that, and the damper back on top of it. And I'm going to try to wiggle it in so it goes through both holes. The steering damper actually moves, so you don't have to worry too much about that, but you might need somebody to hold the brace for you because it's got a bit of a weight to it. This is always the hardest part. Okay, that's good. I'm just gonna hand thread it in, and I'm gonna leave it loose. It feels like it's actually engaged. Yeah, and I'm gonna go on the other side. Turn the front wheel to make room for my hand and the bolt. Okay. So it's very easy to move the steering damper in a lot of directions, and it's always best to line up both the steering damper hole and the cross braces hole. And they're actually really close to lining up with the frame hole as well. So I might just get lucky and push through, and it feels like it's already threading in. It's really good. It's actually in. So there you go. The front, they say the top end has been installed. It's not tightened. I'm going to leave it loose, and by leaving it loose, it's going to make your life easier when you start inserting these bolts down here. So we can move on to this next step. So this part's a bit challenging as well, because with this tiny nylock nut, you will have to reach behind the factory crash bar, and there's a groove on the inside, actually two, and in those grooves both nylock nuts will have to drop in. One little trick is that you push this M6 bolt all the way through, and then try to wiggle this in with one finger and try to thread it on. Okay, so I'm gonna go and push it all the way through and reach behind, one or two fingers depending on, and if it drops, just pick it up and start all over again. I got to attack from the other side. So it's in the groove. I need to slide it over. You can wiggle it in. Yeah, I had to switch sides, and it's become much easier. I'm gonna drop in the second bolt, and a nylock nut. Once it sits in a groove, it's really easy, but putting in a groove is a bit hard. In case it's not sitting well, you can just use the bolt to push it out a bit and then push it back, push the nut back in. Okay. Okay, I'm good here. I think I feel it. Hand thread, and it's good. Okay, so the cross brace is actually installed. I'm going to leave it loose, and we'll start installing the right side crash bar. Okay, now grab the right side, or you can also grab the left side crash bar. I already have the right side in my hand, and also prepare this round head Allen bolt M8 and the locking nut, because this will help you secure the bar on the lower crash bar. So now you gotta make sure that these two holes line up, these two tabs, and they're fairly large, and mine looks really good, so I'm gonna push this bolt through. I try to lean against the bike a bit just to make sure that the bar is not going to fall off while I'm trying to thread this nut on, and it already did. It's hand threaded, it's good. And now we're going to go ahead and, excuse me, and grab one of the clamps, put it on the opposite side of the frame, on the opposite side of the other welded clamp, like that. It's got a silicone strip glued on the inside, so it will keep it away for a little bit. But when you start putting through the bolts and threading on the nut and start tightening, it's going to actually start decreasing its size. So first, it might be a little bit hard to get the nut to thread on the bolt. So I insert the bolt. I have the little M6 nylock nut. It's actually just 2 turns really. You don't need more. And then grab another one. Insert. If you need to compress this with your hand, do so, don't be shy. And then the nylock nut. So it's actually on now. The thread's engaged. It's keeping the clamp on. We can move to the front. Same deal, get the long 6mm hex and put the clamp through on the other side. I go right underneath here and slide it into its place. Feed it through. Nylock. A couple of turns. Feed this one through. See, the silicone strips are holding it off a bit, so I need to pull on it with my finger before threading on the nut. But it's not a problem. Now you can let it go. The right side's on, and you don't need to tighten anything yet. Let's just leave it a little bit loose and then go over the left side or the opposite side and repeat the same steps. Okay, I've got the left side already mounted. Grab the M8 round head bolt. Line up the mounting holes. That's why it's a good idea to leave this bracket loose. It's gonna make your life easier. I'm gonna hold against it with my finger, and on the other side, hand thread the nylock nut. Okay, it's engaged. Perfect. Clamps. This one's a little tight here. I'll go as far up as I can and squeeze it through like so. Long M6 bolt. The other side, nylock nut. Good. Second one, feed it through. Okay, and final clamp at the rear end. I have to pull it together with my fingers just a bit so I can see some thread. And once again, when it catches the thread, do it like 1 or 2 turns. Now it's actually good. Once you have the tools in your hand and start tightening, the silicone strips will start spreading out, thinning out, and it's going to start sucking it in, and the clamps will start coming closer and closer, and we'll have a really good grip on this tubing. One of the final steps to pre-complete the installation is inserting both M6 round head bolts. They're going to connect both sides, and on the other side you will thread on the M6 nylock knots. This is probably the easiest part. So this is what it looks like right now with all the bolts and nuts and all of them. Everything is installed, but it's not tightened yet. So it's still a bit loose, which is good. This is what we want finally, and start tightening each of them. So I prefer going around gradually. Do a couple of turns until I start feeling that it's tightening, and then move on to another one, and not tighten all the way and then move on to another one. That's not really the scenario. That's not the way I like doing it. So I'm gonna go around gently, gradually start tightening all the bolts and nuts using all the recommended tools. So I'll be starting with the steering damper bolts. For this, again, you have to turn the wheel to the left and to the right to have better access, and grab your 10 mil wrench or spanner and just patiently go at it bit by bit. Okay, so now the installation has been completed. All the bolts and nuts have been tightened. When you go out for a ride, a couple of hours, and when you get back home, check all the bolts and nuts once again, tighten them. Any questions, leave us a comment. Thank you so much for watching.